Hey guys, how are you? My admin is still up my arse, so still sorting things out. YouTube. We'll get started in a minute, I promise. One day I will get used to this and be on time as well. Right. Right, my admin's done now, so we'll get there. Just going to give it a little bit more time because I was late as always. So I'm just going to wait to see if anyone comes through from just a YouTube link that I've just put out on our story. But we'll get cracking very shortly. Today's topic is going to be pretty good, to be fair. I think this is going to be something that a lot of people do without thinking about it, especially when they get a puppy or a rescue. So this is going to be very insightful. Hopefully soon I'll have my studio all set up with a better web camera so you can see my beautiful face and fucking better lights that are not flickering and everything else. All right, guys, I'm going to start because you guys have been here since the beginning. So today's topic, and again, thank you for joining on Tuesday. I was busy on Sunday. That was my issue. But there is still going to be a live this Sunday as well. So keep a lookout for that one. So the topic of conversation today is what people do a lot of the time when they get a puppy or when they get a dog, and what mistakes they make and the repercussions of that. But these mistakes are actually, these mistakes are from a good place, from good intentions. And the problem is when these mistakes are made, they can go unnoticed. And sorry, I don't know what my dog's doing. Jimpy, what are you doing? I'm assuming she's laid down. So yeah, when these mistakes go unmanaged and unnoticed, that's when there's a snowball effect, and it can be a silent sort of issue when it comes to later down the line and you think you've got a problem. So number one is avoiding structure from a young age. So what I mean by that is not giving your dog rules when they're in the house or in certain situations. This generally comes from a place of trying to be nice. Oh, it's a puppy, it's cute, or he's a rescue, he had a bad start to his life. And it's excuses really that come from a good place, because we start to anthropomorphize. I didn't say that right, but basically treat the dog as a human, and we see certain situations how we would see them as humans. So the problem with no structure and not a clear understanding of the rules, the dog will start to become anxious because it has too much choice. Another one that I see quite often is when it comes to boundaries. Now, structure and boundaries generally go hand in hand, but boundaries in this case is when the boundaries become inconsistent. And that's when one day you allow your puppy to nibble your finger, for instance, because it's cute, it's sweet. And then 2 weeks later, their dreaded puppy biting starts, when they've got the puppy needle teeth and they're really biting into your legs or your arms, and you don't want that anymore. Well, there's been inconsistent boundaries there because you allowed the dog to do that. Case in point, dog's allowed on the sofa. And then it's allowed on the sofa all the time, maybe allowed on the sofa when you're having a snack, watching TV, having a movie, whatever. And you get the takeaway in one day, and then you don't want the dog on the sofa because you got the takeaway. Well, the dog doesn't understand that because the boundaries have been blurred. So from there, the dog is just in a constant state of guessing as to what they can and can't do. So having clear boundaries is vital. Something else, timings and waiting too long for behaviour to be corrected. So think of this as a case of, again, go back onto my point of the biting scenario. Puppy starts to bite, no problem. And then dog gets older, big problem, right? And the dog then thinks that it can bite anything it wants, anyone it wants. That's where you then consult a trainer. Oh, well, my dog's biting. If we dig down into the root cause of this, the chances are it's been allowed to go on for too long. So not allowing the dog to rehearse bad behavior, then that behavior doesn't get ingrained and carried on. One other one I see with a lot of people and a lot of dogs as well is expecting too much from the dog. Too many people get a dog because they're cute when they're puppies, but then when they get into that teenage stage, maybe 6 months old, they expect the dog just to know how life is. The novelty's wore off. The kids don't particularly care about the puppy anymore or the rescue dog because the novelty's wore off. It's new. It's not new anymore. So what happens then, because the dog hasn't had the guidance it's needed, you're looking at the dog going, really? You don't know what the fuck you're doing? Of course not. How does it know? So trying to put that expectation on your dog, if you haven't shown up for your dog to show it what you want, that's not the dog's fault, that's yours. Or in this case, the owner's. I get that all of this comes from like a really nice place, but I would say 90% of people do this. And that's why dog trainers are needed later on. So how do we mitigate this? How do we stop this? How do we get to the point where you potentially don't need a dog trainer for this particular behavior? Well, let's go back onto point one, shall we? Avoiding structure. Don't avoid structure. It's as simple as that, isn't it, really? Tell the dog, show the dog what is going to happen. Put the dog into a routine. So that's why I like using a crate, right? Crates are like cots for kids. I ain't got kids. right? But that's how I see it. So show the dog from a young age, whether that's a puppy, whether that's a rescue dog, whether it's a fucking elderly dog that you've got from rescue and you're just giving it the best last days of its life or whatever. Create the dog. That's an expectation of it. This is where you're going to be. When you let the dog out of the crate, go to the toilet. And then maybe the house lead goes on. And he's allowed to go to certain areas in the house, right? A lot of people use baby gates. Why do we use baby gates? So the dog can't go somewhere. So you sort of bringing that structure in already. If you use a house lead, so it helps with that, doesn't it? From there, the dog understands what to expect. Let's go on the boundaries. The dog's not allowed on the sofa when you're eating, for instance. The dog's not allowed on your sofa when you're eating, period. Me personally, my dogs have their own space. They've known that from a young age. They know where they need to go when I tell them to go there. Whether that's I'm eating, doing the chores, maybe just want a bit of me time or doing some admin. I don't blur those lines. So when it comes to the boundaries, don't let the dog push them to the point where you then get emotional and think it's the dog's issue. Setting those clear boundaries and having that structure from a young age is going to play dividends later on. Our third point, waiting too long. If you see behavior happening from a young age, sort that shit out there. Don't allow that behavior to rehearse. Because if you continue to rehearse that behavior, or the dog continues to rehearse that behavior, that gets ingrained. The dog feels like it can do that behavior over and over again. Practice doesn't make perfect when it comes to dogs. Rehearsal makes perfect. What I mean by that is, just like if you're training your dog to do something, for instance, a sit, and you do sit every single time, you're doing that 50 times a day, your dog's going to get fucking good at sit. But if your dog's also biting you when you walk past them, and they're doing that 10, 15, 20 times a day, they're going to get fucking good at biting you. But also, they're going to get very good at pattern recognition as to when to bite you, just so they can find the thrill of it. So if you're finding behavior that you don't want to progress and carry on, correct it there and then and stop that. Nice and easy. All of this will feel really, really hard in the early stages. But future you and future dog, Fluffy, fucking Fido, I don't know, Bruce, right, whoever, is going to thank you as well. Because guess what? Doing all of this is going to allow you to have a much better relationship with your dog. It's as simple as that. Going back onto my last point, expecting too much. Don't expect your dog to show up if you haven't shown up for your dog. What I mean by that is, if you haven't put the time and effort in to show the dog what you want, to put the structure in place, to put the boundaries in place, then don't expect your dog to know it. Especially when he gets to the teenage stage, if we're going on to a puppy side of things, right? Because the problem with it is then, if you're not following through with your commands and being consistent, the dog certainly isn't going to. I hear it all the time. Oh, it was great when he was a puppy, then he got into the teenage phase. Yeah. Because the novelty wore off. Same with if you've got a rescue dog or a foster dog or whatever it is. Yeah. Don't expect too much of it straight away. Have you built that relationship? If not, build that relationship. Structure, boundaries, guidance. All needs it. Every single dog does. It's probably sounded more like a rant than anything else. But it's that age-old saying. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Like I said, all of this behavior is going to feel really, really hard and emotionally hard at an early point. But the more you go on, the better it's going to be. And the easier it does get. If any of you that are watching this, if any of you that are watching this need some help and guidance, you don't know where to turn, check out the link in the description below. We've got a guide in there that you can download. It's free. Yeah. It's common things that people do around the house. And, it's hard to sort of mitigate those and to pinpoint them, but this will help. Failing that, drop us a follow on Instagram, All Aspects K9, or even on Facebook, again, All Aspects K9. Drop me a message. Talk to me. I'm happy to speak to anyone. So just give me a shout. You can also send me an email, but again, who sends emails nowadays? But it's there. I'll still reply to them. That's it, guys, really. Nice little short one. Something that came up this week. There's a bit of time now if anyone wants to ask a question about what we've just talked about, or what I've just talked about, or if you've got any questions regarding anything that we do as a company. I'll say we, me. Well, I suppose we. Winter and Jimpy are part of the clan as well. They're employees, I suppose. But yeah, guys, any questions from what I've covered there, or maybe even some behaviour that you're trying to deal with your own dog now? Amazing, guys. I'll get another minute just in case there's any questions. I appreciate you've got to type them. You can't just unmute yourself, but we may actually do a bit of a webinar on this. May do a webinar in general. So if you've got any ideas as to what you want to know a bit more about, I'm all ears. Give me a shout. I think I may have a little bit of something fun planned as well. Hello, mate. Good to see you. It's all right. My fault. My admin's been up my ass. So you haven't really missed much, mate, to be fair. It's very similar to what we were talking about this week anyway. Yeah, got some ideas to what we can try and do going forward. Might be a fun one, actually. Right, guys, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time on a Tuesday evening. I'm sure you've got better things to do. Keep an eye out, though. Sunday, we are going to do another one on Sunday at 7. So keep an eye out for that one. The topic is yet to be found yet, I suppose, but we'll see what's going on. If you need anything, guys, you know where we are. Drop me a message. Happy to talk to anyone. Until then, I will see you on Sunday, 7 o'clock. I will try and be on time this time as well. Thanks for joining, guys. Have a lovely evening. I'll speak to you real soon.